Hey, Daniel.
How's it going?
Good. Say hi to Roger and friends.
Hello, Roger and friends.
We get the digital plumber meets the real plumber. So
Your
we,
skills are probably more useful in the real world.
well, you fix digital plugs and broken toy, shit that gets stuck in the digital space.
There you go.
So Daniel, we've been spending this morning and yesterday and whatnot going through this whole Are You Googleable ecosystem, the two-sided marketplace, which you see the business plan on, and how the businesses come in and they get the Are You Googleable report, which we're building from all the data from these different places, which then drives tasks into the marketplace.
Mhm.
So they're not choosing, the doctor is recommending.
Yeah.
I just wanted you to show some of the stuff, which I know is partial on what you've done inside SPP as a two-sided network so they can see that. And then Will and other folks and some other VAs, maybe Juan and Hezekiah and whatnot, can continue upon what you've built,
Yeah.
especially with the onboarding and making sure we have what we need. So then we can then delegate out tasks to edit content, because the whole digital plumbing leads to making sure the pixels are in place, making sure we record 1 minute videos and update the location service pages to an LSA. Like all these sorts of things start from getting the data. Because if we have the data that comes from initially, are you Googleable, and we do these fixes, then as they run the report, they should see that the numbers are getting better, right?
Yeah.
It requires a lot of coordination to happen on our side because the the VAs, the account managers, the clients, they're dependent upon us having put all that stuff together. So we, as the
Yep.
Uber, need to make sure all these pieces are coordinating, messages being sent. Now, will you go do this? Now the client here's a notification. Like all this kind of messaging to coordinate between all these people has to happen. So given that's where we're moving to, I wanted you to show some of what we have now and where we can improve upon that.
Yeah. Sure thing. I'm going to stop my video while I share my screen because Wi-Fi only lets me do one very reliably. So let me share what I've built out. So this is for specifically for the digital plumbing side. What we've done is we tried to go through and identify what are kind of the core basic pieces that every small business is going to need, right? There are tons of different platforms we could try to test out, but if we're trying to start off with just this is the very basics that if they want nothing else, this is what they need to have, then this is what we tried to identify and how what we need to get from them, and then kind of trying to guide them through that process of sharing those pieces of information. So what we've done is within SPP, we have the ability to create, we start off with creating the service, what it is. In this case, it's the local business digital plumbing. And then the real crux of this comes down to this intake form, right? The thing that we have to try to translate is how do we take a bunch of different unique situations that businesses may be in. Maybe they already have a Google Analytics. Maybe they don't. Maybe they've got a Facebook page, but not a Facebook ad account. Maybe they've tried some ads before, but they hated that what they saw and they're trying to figure out what they need to do to move forward. And so what we've done is we've gone through and we've created little video modules for every single occurrence that we could think of and that we've experienced and encountered of a position a small business could be in as they're getting started with getting their digital plumbing fixed. And then with those little videos, we've gone through and we've created rules based on how they answer certain questions. So I'm just going to share a preview of what this form looks like when they visit it, right? So the first thing we're asked is, what's your website? Who are we working with? Who's the primary contact we want to talk to? And then it starts to dive into different places that they could be with each channel, right? So have they created a Facebook Business Manager? If they say yes, then it skips a video and sends them down to the Facebook page section. If they don't, then it walks them through and shows them a video. Okay, here's where you go. Here's the steps you take to be able to create a Facebook Business Manager. And then it just walks them through step by step, trying to identify the different assets that they're going to need in order to be successful going through this process, and then showing them how to share those access with us at the very end of things, right? So we've got our business manager ID. It's got a whole video that walks them through the process
Let's walk
of
you through the
sharing
process
that
of sharing your.
their business, their Facebook assets with us. And we do that with Facebook. We do that with Google Analytics. We do that with Google Ads. We do that with Google Business Profiles, Google Tag Manager. And then at the very end, we walk them through a little bit about how we're going to set up the conversions that we have that they want us to set up for them, right? We've set certain rules where they have to have an offer page URL where the, you know, where the form lives or where the call button lives, and then they have to have a thank you page because anything beyond that makes it really difficult to optimize and to kind of do at a scale without really expert people. So that's kind of the whole intake process. They go through all of those different questions. And this is kind of where we saw the biggest holdup. This is where we need to have people who are trained in the access side of things so that once they go through this process, all of these questions are required. But even with these required questions, people still do find ways to fill out the wrong thing, right? They'll skip the thank you page URL or they'll skip the offer page URL and they'll just put their website again. And so what we need and what we've figured out that we need to have is we need to have VAs who are specifically trained in all of these access pieces that once the submission comes through and once somebody has sent in this initial intake form, their job is to go through and verify, okay, yes, all of these things look right. We have access to all these assets and oh, they missed this one. And now it's my job to reach out to the business owner using that primary contact email to say, hey, here's what we got, here's what we're missing. This is what we need before we can move forward. And so once they've gone through that process, then we're pushed over to this second area, which is the tasks area. At this point, it's assigned out to a specialist who's been trained. We have a whole course walking through each of the different steps of these tasks, but it's assigned over to one of those specialists who has completed that training. And then they have all of these different tasks that they have to go through. And the really great thing is, even though they've gone through the training, we want to make sure that if they get stuck or if they forget how to do something, they can then go through and watch the training video of how to do that particular task right within the marketplace itself. Obviously, they've gone through our academy. They've already proven that they know how to do this. But just in case they need a refresher course, they need a reminder, we have those training elements embedded into the tasks right there. Once people got to this point, once we got through this intake in the tests we did a little pilot of this like 6 months ago or something like that. Once we got through this intake process, this particular pathway was really easy. They'd gone through the training, and because we've pulled in all of the different pieces of information, it was really easy for them to just go through and copy and paste the various elements that they needed. And it was easy for them to complete the task and get the tracking all set up in a way that's simple, but still robust enough for a small business to start to see some success and see some results from the ads that we'll then do after this particular point. I'm going to pause my screen share for just a second. I'm going to pull up what one of these order submissions look like, just so you can see kind of what kind of information they're getting sent through.
While he's doing that, know that the cool thing about going through the Are You Google report is it completes the first part of onboarding already. Get some of this
Oh,
data.
yeah. No, I was looking at
They
that.
already got their foot, all the part way in.
Yeah, they've already
So-
signed up, whether they know it or not.
Yeah. Because the last thing we want is for them to have to re-enter in all this. Every time they go to another system, they got to re-enter in all their stuff and re-register and create a new username, password, and whatever. The idea is you just have one account and flows all the way through. And if we need to show it's like separate companies with the Are You Googleable versus the agencies or not, we could say, hey, do you give permission to hand off this information to whatever when it's still within the same system?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, so these intake forms just create a section within that particular order, and it just goes through and it lists answers to all the questions. Obviously, some of these are just there because we have to have those in order to customize the pathway that the business owner needs to go through. Obviously, having the answer yes does not do anything for the VA. But if you look, then when the VA is going through to verify that we have access, they really quickly and very easily know this is the Facebook page that I'm looking for in our business manager. Is it there? Yes or no? Once the person is actually going through to create the conversion events in Google Tag Manager, they've got, okay, here's where I need to put the offer conversion event. Here's where I need to put the thank you conversion event. Here's the category that they've selected. Here's the value, and they're ready to go. And this one was a good one too, because it shows an example of, hey, somebody completed the form, but they didn't provide the login details that we need. So we need that VA to go through and follow up and say, hey, we need that information before we can proceed. We can't quite launch your project until we have that login information. And it just kind of smooths things over and gives kind of the basics, and it eliminates a lot of the legwork that you would need to do in getting access because the information is already there.
So I think working with these local service businesses, mainly home service, plumbing, landscaping, roofing, electrical, is that they won't do something or they'll forget about one step. And we don't want the VA or account manager to have to constant, because that just adds tons of headache. So in SPP and Infusionsoft and marketing automation in general, there's the ability to build into follow-up, do that. So that's the thing I think that really adds a ton of value for us, because it's initially, text message. They're out in the field, they're not checking their email, whatever it is. And then we create these fun little video kind of messages where it feels like we're saying something, but the AI is generating the video, that kind of thing. So do we have some of those messaging sequences in there already, don't we?
I don't have any built out with that particular one, just because there was so many. It was the pilot test, and we had a VA who was in charge of watching over it. But I'm
Okay.
sure that is something that we could look at building out. I haven't built anything of that for this particular one.
Good. So as it relates to plumbing, which is tracking phone calls, or there's real ROI for these local service businesses, some of the bigger boys will be on Service Titan and we'll be able to pull that data. But if not, how do we coordinate that with GMB, local service ads, seeing how many phone calls there are? Because the main thing is we want to show how many phone calls there are, right? And some people can fill out forms requesting service, but the phone calls are obviously the most important ones. And if it's call rail, we want the calls, as you know, that are 1 minute plus. That's a good sign that it was a good lead, right?
Yeah. I'm not sure I understand what you're asking.
What's your thought on how do we show that? Dylan's pulling all the data from the different APIs, but how do you think is the best way to onboard these people or kind of assess their performance, given that call data comes in so many ways from different systems? It's sort of an open-ended question, or maybe something to think about.
Yeah, I think something to think about. I mean, the initial thought is you have to have some place where they go to look, a dashboard or something like that, where we're pulling the data from those different sources. But SPP at least doesn't have a place where that would make sense to show up. This would just be handling the transactional data from my experience in the platform. But if we wanted to, even if we just want to stay simple with like a Google Studio sort of thing where we make the connections there. And once we know if we, Service Titan, Call Rail, if we just have the basic integrations there, then it's probably pretty easy to just templatize and copy and paste for every new person who comes on board. But
Okay. Why don't you get with Dylan? And I love to build in parallel because he is building the dashboard to pull in all this other stuff. And of course, from an engineering standpoint, that does take longer. But you're real quick in Data Studio. You put together some amazing things in Data Studio. So maybe start with some of the plumbers that we have that, Parker and Will are working with. Try to get to a standardized dashboard, which will tie to Are You Googleable? Because this current Are You Googleable, I still see as being where they first come in, they put in their URL, or we find their name through the Google Maps API, just like Vendasta does with snapshot report. So based on publicly available data, we can do all this kind of scoring. But then there's other parts that are unlocked. It's like gray, sort of like faded out with the lock on it. And then they have to give us access, that they OAuth to give us their analytics and GMB and stuff like that to pull other data, which requires insights data. So
okay.
think about how we've done that for any kind of local kind of business, which I know you've done, and try to standardize that and especially make it apropos to home service businesses. So try to set that up in Data Studio off of the live clients we have. Think about just how to like backfill that with the way we're doing stuff in SPP so it can be repeatable. And then meanwhile, Dylan will keep doing what he's doing in a slower, more methodical engineering kind of way. But what you build will be sort of rapid prototyping to help out Dylan. Does that
Okay.
make sense?
Yeah. I can look into that. I'm kind of thinking like almost like a trickle down. Just
Yeah.
my initial thought is kind of like a trickle down where you have total number of Google My Business actions, how many of those calls turned into, you know, a call of 1 minute or more, and kind of just show that flow of the drop offs from there.
Which
I'll
he's
look at
done. He's gotten that data, but he's not presented it in a way that looks nice.
Yeah.
His name's Daniel.
Daniel.
Hey, Daniel.
Yeah.
What if we had either a call rail number or a Google number where even their personal or business number, we forwarded everything through that number. It's still going to ring back to them.
Yeah.
Now we create either a call rail or a Google number
Yeah.
where even all their call rail numbers, everything goes to this trackable number.
Mm-hmm.
So
Uh-huh.
now we get a report every day telling us how many times that phone rang.
Yeah. That could certainly work.
That way, because if we put it on the plumber, the HVAC guy,
They're
he's
not
gonna
gonna
get, yeah, I didn't get any calls today.
Yeah. No, they're focused on the actual work. They don't want to deal with all this stuff.
Brother, I've been there. I get it.
Yeah.
But if we can forward their business number, their call rail number, every single number to one number that we can track, we know exactly how many calls they get every day. And
Yeah.
then anything under a minute, we automatically disqualify.
Dan, can you figure out what's the best way? Figure out the process. If they have a call rail, how do we get that? If they
Yeah.
don't, do we have them create a call rail? Do we just use our call rail and assign a number to them or a couple numbers? Think about what you think is the cleanest way to handle this. Because we know call rail is like the dominant call tracking thing, right? Even though these other guys have their own way of doing it.
My initial thought is, if we're trying to do this, if we want to take as much of it out of their hands as possible and have it be just one number that's forwarded, it almost might make sense for us just to have one call rail and then just assign them a number that it goes through. Because then we don't have to log in. We don't have to have a million logins and add an extra access step to say, hey, give us your call rail details as well. I don't know. I can't remember the like number limits that you can have within call rail at certain subscription levels, but I imagine once this is profitable, the profitability of the project will pretty drastically override the cost of having unlimited call rail numbers. So
I think the issue is going to be we prefer taking on the bigger guys. Like he's got this Milestone Electric. They do 175 million a year. I bet you they have their own call rail. And they probably bank of 50, numbers or whatnot.
Yeah, or more.
So
they track every little detail.
So we think about what and Daniel, you have a lot of experience with enterprise guys who have many, many locations.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe this is wishful thinking, but is there a way that we can have a path for that we can reuse the same thing if they're multi-location and big versus it's just like Bob the plumber who's in one city with like 3 trucks,
Yeah, I think you definitely have to have some kind of divide between the big boys and the small groups, because a plumber who's doing stuff within 20 miles of his business is not the same as somebody who has a whole fleet of people who are working for them. So there probably is a pathway. I don't know what it is right now, but I definitely think it would be important to divide it between kind of
think about
enterprise versus, yeah.
Because building it out, we need someone like you who's done this many times because we've made our bread and butter off of the big boys who have many, many locations. I think it's extensible down to people with one location, but the way we've made millions is off of people who have 100+ locations, but then that requires client service. It does all these things that we don't want to offer in this Are You Googleable or even, work done by VAs or account managers. We don't have people, nor do we want people who are at that level of account management because that's, politics and taking them out to eat and a level of skill that's just very hard to train up to, as you know.
Yeah. Yeah.
So I don't have an answer here. Just I'm hoping you'll think about it and come up with an answer.
I'll think about it. See what we can.
Problem. So I'm
come
giving
up
you
with.
a problem. You have to figure out the answer.
Okay, I'll put some thought into it. See what I can come up with.
All right. Cool, man. Anything else you want to add? Thoughts? You've seen the
Nope.
business components as they're coming together.
Yeah, I'll dig in. I think I probably need to see like a roadmap of what Dylan's doing so I know where my stuff would fit in. But I'll reach out to Dylan. That's no problem. So
Got back from vacation 2 days ago. So he's
okay.
been gone a week and a half. Okay.
Okay, sounds good.
All right. You're the best, Daniel.
See ya.
All right. See you.